Here in New Mexico, our economy remains heavily dependent on the oil and gas industry. State lawmakers are expected to be called into a special session later this month to deal with a looming budget deficit that's tied to lower than expected revenues from oil and gas this year. Now, a big purchase in the industry was announced this week. Yates Petroleum, a big name here in New Mexico, is set to be bought by a Texas-based company. And also this week, we learned that New Mexico's recently departed Environment Secretary Ryan Flynn is headed for a new job. That would be executive director for the New Mexico Oil and Gas Association. Now, that organization lobbies on behalf of the industry in Santa Fe. Let's see how this goes. Our line opinion panelists are ready to share their thoughts and reactions to this latest news here in New Mexico. I'm joined this week by Dan Foley, former New Mexico House Minority Whip. Vicki Harrison's here with Common Cause New Mexico and a rockin' new haircut. Sophie Martin, an attorney and editor of DukeCityFix.com. And Mary T. Torres. She's an attorney at the law offices of Mary T. Torres. Love it. First, let's start with former Secretary Flynn. Governor Martinez stated earlier in her first term in office that cabinet secretaries would not lobby for at least 2 years after leaving state government. Daniel, conflict of interest, just the words of a new governor that nobody cares about 2 years down the road or 8 years down the road. What happens here?
So, you know, I don't think there's any teeth for her to hold him accountable.
Right.
I think you're going to hear that he's going to come back and say, I'm not a lobbyist, I'm the executive director.
Right.
We'll hire a lobbyist and I'll just, you know,
Sure.
I'll show up and shake hands and do things. The other thing that I will
Let me stop you right there.
Sure.
This is where it gets interesting. How much influence does that have, just shaking hands?
It has a lot.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
the NMOGA is a very powerful organization. I mean, people may disagree with me. I think lots of times for the right reasons. I think that they've done a very good job of educating the public. They have a pretty good program of getting out in the schools and talking about what it is they do. They've also done a pretty good job of creating their own ability to regulate the industry, right? If you got problems with farmers and ranchers, before we go to court and before we do stuff, go to NMOGA. Let NMOGA intervene and try to rectify the problem. It is, though, going to just draw the ire of the anti-oil and gas folks. I mean, here you're taking someone who was deciding who's going to drill on state lands, whether they get fined or don't get fined, whether they're violating the rules and regulations that exist. And now you say we're going to take you immediately from being the watchdog to, you know, putting you in the hen house.
Right.
And, you know, but in his defense, NMOGA is a very powerful organization, pays very handsomely.
Yes.
And, you know, he has the background. I mean, this is not somebody that just came out of nowhere. This is a guy that's, you know, been at the BLM, been at the state level, been at the federal level, understands what it is that's going on with these folks, has worked in multiple areas from Farmington to southeastern New Mexico. So, you know, it'll be interesting to see. Now for the governor, it kind of puts her in a precarious position. I mean, do you close the door to NMOGA for the last 2 years? Do you say, listen, you violated kind of what I set in place, or do you just say, look, he's not the lobbyist, so I'm going to welcome the lobbyist in from the NMOGA?
A lot of gray there. That Dan, thank you for that setup, by the way. That was brilliant. A lot of gray there, however, a lot of fog that Mr. Flynn could walk through and not realize.
And I think one of the things that's been missing from this conversation that's begun about Mr. Flynn's new position is that it's not just environmental groups who are upset about this or who are talking about this. It's also open government that we should be concerned about because you know, sort of building on something that Dan has said, it's not just I am a lobbyist handing out checks to the legislature, doing that sort of thing. It's also, and I think this is a real concern, if I have the expectation while I work for government that there's going to be a soft landing for me when I leave government, as long as I play my cards right, as long as I'm friendly to that organization and that industry, that's much harder for us to detect up front. It's not the, you know, the am I lobbying or am I not lobbying? It seems like a softer kind of ethical issue, but an ethical issue nonetheless. And so while the governor's intention to prevent lobbying of state agencies by former state employees for at least 2 years, while the intention appears to have been good, it doesn't really cover the myriad of ways that a state employee could be influenced before they leave office or that they could influence after they leave.
Vicki Harrison from 2011 State of the State. Governor Martinez, quote, there must be no question that public officials are serving only the interests of the public, not positioning themselves for a big payday with a special interest group, end quote. That sounds like exactly what's happened here.
Absolutely.
So is this a mark on the governor as well?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, I think that this is what the governor has said that in more than one state of the state. You know, at Common Cause, we have been pushing for a bill for years called the revolving door bill that would prevent legislators, cabinet members from lobbying for 2 years after they leave office.
Right.
So she has supported that bill. She's made a mention of it in her State of the State. I think both Dan and Sophie make really good points. This is not like this. He's not leaving the Environment Department and going to Macy's. Okay, I mean,
Right.
he's going from the same industry to the other industry. And you know, I'm the executive director of Common Cause. I have a legislative director who lobbies, and I have a lobbyist. But if you think I don't lobby because I'm not the lobbyist, lobbying is not just showing up to Santa Fe to testify. That's like the last thing it is.
That's right.
Lobbying is the access, having the phone number in your cell phone that you can pick up and get a meeting with. It's all of these things in the background. It's access. I always say it's not the steak dinners, it's not the whiskey, it's not the contributions, it's access. And so I think it creates, I mean, he's walking right into a problem just like his predecessor did.
That's right.
And again, so I mean, Sophie makes a really great point. How do we know that people aren't setting themselves up? I've heard legislators tell me when they go against the revolving door bill, I'm up here learning stuff. Why can't I take it and go use my education somewhere else?
Heard that, yeah.
Well, you're learning stuff because you're representing us as a legislator. This is not college, okay?
Remember, we had a legislator that spent some time at Namoga also.
Yeah.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Hank
right.
Cravens that left the Senate.
Yeah,
and
that's
went-
right.
Reminder.
In the
Exactly
middle
right.
of the term.
That's right. You know, Mary, it's interesting. Of course, we're all dealing with frontier economics of a sort here. Opportunities are somewhat limited. And so, you know, our John Barella's off to go do something else. This man's off to go do something else. You can't blame them. But I agree with Vicki, and I want to get your sense of it too. I mean, the man knows where everything is in that department.
Including the office supplies.
That's right, everything.
Yeah.
Everything. That has to mean something at the end of the day for decision making. Would you agree with that, or is it more benign than that?
I agree, but there is not a law that prohibits that.
Right.
The governor has asked that there be a law. The legislature has not approved it, so there's not a law. He says he's not going to lobby. I understand the position that she's taken. You know, you can't be the boss and not say you're lobbying. But
right.
if he says I'm not going to lobby, I'm not going to lobby. And you know, he's done a great job at his position. He's been approved by the legislature unanimously. He's done a great job.
Had bipartisan
I think.
support.
Right, exactly. So.
Everyone loved him when he was coming in.
Exactly.
Remember that? It was
so,
a
and
love
I
fest.
think
That's
he is taking advantage of an opportunity, and I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing, but because everyone has done it. And
Is
so
it-
maybe we get this revolving door legislation passed, and then that says
Well,
you
remember-
But is it, well, hold on, a quick sec. Is it weighted, however, because it is the oil and gas industry and that is the straw that stirs the drink here? Do you know what I mean?
No.
We would have
No.
this, does it make any difference?
I think it's in any situation.
Okay.
I mean, in any position that you are in. You know, for example, if you're a secretary of the Department of Corrections,
Right.
you go and now work for the Corrections Corporation of America. I mean, it's,
I think,
Well-
I think
the
it's
same kind of a
weighted.
thing.
I think it's weighted because of Governor Martinez's statement
Okay.
that this was something she wasn't going to allow. My sense, and I could be totally wrong, but my sense isn't that Governor Martinez was like, let's make sure that we carefully craft. She may have carefully crafted it, but so that these employees can actually slip through. My sense was that this was, you know, real policy.
Absolutely.
And-
absolutely.
It sounds like the
Yeah,
wording,
and,
sure.
And so that, I think, in the absence of any statute, in the absence of regulations with teeth, that's really the thing that feels not right. The fact that we're still in Governor Martinez's administration. Yes, people are starting to look for other opportunities because she's not a lame duck
Twilight.
yet, but we're nearing it, right? And yet, he still was working for the governor, was working for the executive branch, and so, you know, is it that the governor didn't back it up with contracts
Sure.
with her employees?
Yeah.
What was going on there?
So remember though,
Please.
that the governors didn't talk about them lobbying. She talked about them lobbying the agencies they left.
Okay.
And so he's already said, I will not be representing Namoga before the Environment Department. So he's done what the governor has asked him to do. What's interesting, and you posed a great question, the reason I kind of jumped in and I apologize, when I was like, no, when you said, doesn't matter because it's Namoga, we have legislators right now in the legislature that work for nonprofit entities. They work for they're
Or for-profit entities, for that matter, yeah.
But the nonprofit ones are important because some of these nonprofit entities are getting money from the legislature, and they're taking political stances. They're promoting an agenda, and we've got legislators that are able to say, well, when I'm in the legislature, I'm Joe Legislator. When I'm out of the legislature, I'm the executive director of this action committee or what we're doing here, and yet there seems to be no ire from people saying, well, wait a minute, those people are as involved in political activities as NMOGA is.
Right.
The difference is NMOGA has a ton of money, and I would argue that some of these nonprofits, based on some of the people that have contributed money to them over the years, they have a ton of money also. So,
Right.
I mean, we can't be half pregnant in this. If we're angry about the private sector folks, we
Yeah.
got to be angry about the nonprofit
Fair enough.
folks.
Fair enough. And to Dan's point, Sophie, the group has donated $12,500 to campaigns so far this year. And that's a lot of money around these parts for campaign donations. Again, that speaks loudly, I would have to think, in certain hallways of our state government. But switch up on you here. We had a big sale this week, I mentioned. The Yates family has sold for $2.5 billion, no small amount of money. But that's a big local family and a nameplate, so to speak. It just, what does it mean?
And 300 employees.
That's right. Thank
has
you.
been pointed out. I mean, I think it means a couple of things. One is probably nonprofits and other organizations, groups around the state, are concerned about whether the Yates family is going to continue to be as generous as they have been in the past in New
enough.
Mexico. I think probably Yates employees in the state are concerned about whether their jobs will be consolidated with jobs in Texas in the interest of efficiency. And so while we've heard statements coming out of the communities in which Yates is most active, saying, we're just relieved to know what's going on. There still is this sword hanging over those communities, and I think that it's going to take some time for them to figure out what the impact
Sure,
is.
Vicki,
He's really
we're
benefited.
all used to hearing, oh, nothing's going to change, all the employees, and then down
Right.
the road,
Right.
there's big problems. It's different when it's a
Let's
family
not
business,
let that
isn't
happen
it?
this time.
That's right.
This is a family business that is been a premier in New Mexico for almost 100 years.
That's right.
And this is somebody that, everybody knows a Yates.
Right.
And I think that, that's really important. And I think that, first of all, I had no idea they were so philanthropic. I feel bad as a nonprofit person. I've never harassed them before. I feel like it might be too late now.
That's right.
Well, I think they're a little bit more liquid than they were before, so you might
Yeah, maybe
good
so.
point. That's a
But
good
I
point.
think that, I hope the employees get to keep their jobs. We've already seen so much with the oil prices dropping.
That's right.
That southeastern New Mexico doesn't need to lose more employees. We've already lost too many.
Remember, kudos to the Yates also. They've been down this road before, and they got pretty far with, I think it was Devon Energy,
Yes.
one of those guys, and one of the sticks in the mud that kept them from consummating the deal was Devon Energy would not agree to leaving the headquarters in Artesia. And
Gotcha,
so
gotcha.
I find it hard to believe that they finally reached a deal and said, look, we had this great deal 5 years ago that we could have made a ton more money on, I think, because the price of oil and gas was a lot higher. They were
point.
selling at a premium. But the sticking point out of the Yates was we will not get rid of these employees. So I think they probably found a partner that agrees with them keeping what they have.
That's a
I
good
hope
point.
so.
That's a good point. Yeah, Mary. Again, these things mean something. Family-owned businesses, it's different. They're not perfect family-owned businesses, certainly. But at the end of the day, you go to the mat for your own.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? It's just how it goes.
Definitely.
And,
I have a family-owned business. My brothers have a family-owned business, and we're in this process
Right.
as well. And I think that's one of the things that they look for. Is we
Sure.
want to make sure our employees are kept and our employees
right.
are kept happy.
That's
and,
right.
and it sounds like that's what the
That'd
Yates
be
want.
Let me ask you another question. The Yates had no small amount of political power here as well.
Correct.
So there's a bit of a void that happens, or a vacuum that happens there as well. Is that a good thing, bad thing? How do you see that? It's not that not that they were raging through the hallways of the
Right.
roundhouse, certainly, but when they needed to be heard from,
Right.
They would be
There's-
heard.
I think they're still going to be heard. I think
Absolutely.
they're definitely
Yeah,
still going to be.
absolutely.
And especially,
Yeah.
I mean, Harvey Yates is the RNC person from New Mexico.
That's right.
So he's definitely going to be.
And Sophie, Mary just answered my last question on that. Mr. Yates has had his share of tete-a-tetes and dust-ups with the Republican Party here.
Sure.
How does that change? Do you know what I mean? That he's been a strong voice in the party for change, meaning against this current administration in a lot of ways.
I would expect to see that he still is a strong voice and continues his activities with the party. I wouldn't really expect to see that change, and unless he says, I would like to spend more time with my family. And
Right.
we all understand.
Yeah.
But we're not hearing that yet, so I think we can expect that he'll still remain active.
Point there. When we come back to the line, we discuss the murder of a young girl here in Albuquerque and the questions that case has raised about the management of people on parole here in New Mexico.